What's up, family? I am your host, Angel Rios, founder of the Rally Cry and creator of Enough Said. And here we talk about ways that we can self-improve, ways that we could connect with ourselves so that we be able to connect with other people that actually give us meaning. And today is going to be an interesting topic. We're going to be talking about attachment theory, one of the classic theories that you might have heard of. And in this episode, we're going to be breaking that down and asking ourselves, am I attached? Is there something that I am not being mindful of right now? Because when it comes to the attachment theory, we realize that there is certain behaviors that we operate in ways where we don't even realize that we're acting upon what we've been used to already. In 1982, we have our friend John Bowlby that was the one that initiated this theory, that he believes that the relationships that you formed when you were a baby, whether if it's with your father or with your mother, that relationship itself is what influences the relationships that you form now, whether that's intimacy, whether that's even with a friend, or even if it's with yourself. The relationship that you have with yourself in ways that you emotionally regulate to what you're used to. I mean, we hear things like, I was raised this way, or this is just what I'm used to. And so John Bowlby really thought that human behavior was biologically wired by the connection that they had with their parents. That the relationship you have with your parents is a big indicator of how you form relationships as you get older. That attachment theory is not necessarily something that goes away, but it transfers either into a maladaptive approach or more of an adaptive approach. And what I mean by a maladaptive, I mean in ways where we cannot be able to operate in a way that is healthy for us and even for the person that we're with. So think about when you was a baby, when you was a kid, how was the relationship that you had with your mom, with your dad, or anyone that was significant in your life where you can remember? Because when we start reflecting, we start thinking about possibly childhood trauma, about what is the relationship that I had that makes me understand how I see things now, that how I see myself, that how I see someone else. When we start talking about descriptive theory, we're literally describing the beginning components of human behavior. That John Bowlby believes that when we pay attention to this, we understand what started it in the first place. That the relationship that you're in and the relationships that you have is influenced based on the first relationship you ever created. That's with your mother. That ideally, that's really where it comes from, because you come out from your mother first and you build that relationship with her first. I mean, when you're inside the womb, you're building that relationship. And so he believes that within the first 2 years, it's the most crucial component of your way to communicate and your way to connect with others and even possibly yourself. Now, even with this understanding, what do we do with this theory? When it comes to attachment theory, we talk about the prescriptive of what we can do in interventions. As when we are thinking about attachment theory, how can we use this as a tool? And so we use this in ways to understand the process of how we operate, to what is something that we respond to more to maybe we're familiar with, or maybe the thing that we just always been longing for. With understanding past relationships, you understand on the relationships that you understand for yourself. When we can understand what was the kind of relationships that was formed early on, we can use this as information to be able to spot the thing that we either want to change or maybe just want to understand. Most of the times when you hear the word attachment, you think about it being a bad thing. And so it's an interesting perspective, because when I think about attachment, I think about coping mechanism and how necessarily most of the time some of us are coping with an idea of something we've always wanted or what we always needed. And so when it comes to attachment can feel like familiarity, because when something gives us familiarity, something that we're used to because of how we were when we were younger, we then have this sense of safety. Think of attachment as an emotional response, that the thing that I had felt when I was with my mother or someone that was raising me, that kind of relationship gives me a sense of safety, that there's some emotional reaction that I have in that moment that as I get older, I want that same familiarity, that I want that same nurturing feeling or even the feeling that I've always been curious about if I got it or not. You ever have those moments where you had a really good memory, whatever that memory is, and it's a really good memory, and you almost wish that you can relive that memory? With that feeling, we want to be able to relive it because it's almost this nostalgic feeling. So when it comes to having an attachment, the theory is that the relationship and the emotional piece that you had in that moment is what you'll also be looking for in your current relationships. The only issue about attachment theory is that when it comes to attachment, it builds too much expectations. When I think about expectations could be to what you already know. And so you will get into a relationship, whether it's bad or whether it's good. John Bowlby believes that if you were to have a relationship that was healthy in the beginning of your younger years, that good of a relationship can carry over into better relationships when you're an adult. Now, of course, on the flip side, if we had bad relationships that were not healthy for us mentally, emotionally, and maybe even physically, that can be a big reason of why most people can get into mental health disorders such as anxiety, depression, and probably even worse. For an example, if I have an experience from when I was younger, then I'm always getting yelled at, I'm more than likely to get into a relationship where I'm always getting yelled at. It might look different, but it's essentially the same. It's something that we're familiar with, so when it happens to us, we're already desensitized to it, where it doesn't seem like it's an alert. It doesn't draw us away. Now, let's say for an example, if you always had a very soft tone parent that was a little bit more careful with disciplining you. Let's say you wasn't yelled at, and you get into a relationship where you're always getting yelled at. You're more than likely to protect yourself from a situation where you're always getting yelled at. I mean, who wants to get yelled at in relationships? I mean, I don't. And so the proposition that John Bowlby initiates is in saying that whatever you've been conditioned with, you'll be used to and familiar with in ways where you're going to be like, oh, this is normal, because it's something that you was brought into. Now, we can even still say that if you get into an experience, let's say, keeping the example of being yelled at, you might want to still get into a relationship that you've not been yelled at. But the biggest component is about that, regardless of the point, is that the beginning years of your life is a big influence to how you get into relationships later on in your adult years. John proposes that our experiences is what allows us to navigate through relationships and what we're willing to tolerate or accept. And so to understand on how long ago this theory was, how is it even relevant today? Attachment theory is really close to the social environment perspective, in that the interactions that you have with people and the experiences that they create is a big indicator of how you project into relationships and how you project yourself into a relationship. That it comes with boundaries and relational trauma, that you want to start reflecting about what is the thing that I'm not really confident in myself in. When you could be mindful of the kind of attachments that you might have and the experiences and how they've influenced you to be where you are today, that is a way that we can bring awareness, adjust if needed, and then pivot when needed. It reminds me of, you want to spot it, stop it, and then swap it. That sometimes to only be able to change something, you have to know that it needs to be changed. It's almost like driving in a car. If I don't know I have a flat tire, I'm not going to change it. I'm going to keep the tire that's already on my car. But until I realize there's a flat tire, then that's when I know there needs to be a change. And what I find interesting is that how attachment theory really plays the relational part of our lives. That we long for connection, that we want that one person that just makes us feel understood. That when we understand the things that we're lacking, or the things that we've been love bombing potentially, because it goes into the aspect of potentially love bombing because of that past experience, because of that relationship that we had with our parents. So I want to share with you 3 types of attachment styles that is shown in research. Studies show that there's the secure type, there's the anxious type, and then there's the avoidant type. Of course, we understand there's a secure type is where is healthy relationships. We believe others can be dependable. The anxious type is where the fear of being abandoned and always wanting to prevent something bad to happen. And so in that part, it can almost feel like love bombing. And then there's the avoidant type. The avoidant type is more of like, I kind of just don't want to deal with it. And so therefore, I don't think people are dependable. And this is because of my experience. The avoidant type is more than likely someone that feels distant and doesn't really want to connect with people. We can even say that's trust issues. When I heard attachment theory, it was something that really grabbed my attention because it's something that I've used for myself. And it's something that I keep in mind as a framework because it allows us to reflect our past experiences. And so that way we don't go into relational patterns that could potentially keep holding us back for something that is a lot more deserving. We want to always take the time to reflect and understand where we are now and what even brought us here in the first place. That why was I attracted to this person? Or why am I attracted to these kinds of people? And it's because of the values that you created when you was in the first relationship that was ever created with your mother, with your father. That relationship is a big indicator to how you build relationships today. I believe when it comes to the kind of theories, when it comes to psychology, when it comes to the social dynamic of how we operate, it's important to share the framework that allows us to understand, to navigate in relationships with others, with ourselves. And so I want you guys to let me know, is there any attachment styles that you feel like you may have resonated with? And if so, let me know down below. Make sure you subscribe. And until next time, you guys be easy. Peace.